What's up, everyone? John from Beyond ARTV here with
Infinity on Hannah.
And today we're going to be reviewing Season 1 of the Netflix horror drama series. There's a lot of different things that it could apply to it. Stranger Things, that's the title of the show. And we watched through it pretty quickly, didn't we?
Yeah, it did not take long.
It's one of those addictive...
It's a short one.
It is. It's a short show, only 8 episodes. And it's very addictive. It builds suspense, mystery, and it's one of those shows that I feel like makes you think a whole lot whenever you're watching it.
And even with finishing it, we still have a lot of questions, so...
And that's actually something that we're kind of going to discuss. We're going to get our general assessment and review out of the way first. If you want to stick around till the end of the video, we will be talking some spoilers and some things that we think for upcoming Season 2.
So this show is actually set in the 80s. What year was it exactly?
I believe it was 1983 was the exact year, and we kind of start off in a science lab seeing some government testing sites, and we're automatically wondering exactly what's going on here.
So it starts sort of with like these kids, they're in their basement at like one of their houses, they're playing these nerdy games. I think it was Dungeons and Dragons. Something like that. They're talking about this monster called the Demogorgon.
Yeah, the Demogorgon
is like this fictional thing, which kind of makes sense later in the plot, like
exactly.
in real life.
Not to give too much away from that, but it does play a very important factor, and I think it was kind of cool how they kind of tied in, I guess, the nerd culture, the culture of the 80s. It's a very, very 80s centered like piece.
Yeah.
It's something that really speaks to that time. And I really thought they did a great job with the details.
I know. I definitely felt like it was straight out of the 80s, something we're both a big fan of.
Exactly.
So they captured that really well.
And I think you noticed that I was a huge fan of the music in this show.
How would you describe that?
It's kind of like building, driving, airy synthesizers that add so much texture and just suspense and pacing to each episode.
It's interesting.
You know, you hear that creeping synth line. Something's going down. Shit is getting real.
It's intense.
I thought there was a pretty great cast and crew for this. I thought everything was very well shot. Like everybody was like had a lot of chemistry. I felt
I think also the children actors were really, really good. Like at what they, acting. Like
and they looked like they were straight out of the 80s, didn't they?
I know. Like I'm curious to see what they are like in real life because they really do seem like a bunch of like kids from the 80s.
There's a group of 4 friends and they've got a really good chemistry with each other. They play off each other just exactly what you would expect from 80s kids.
They're all sort of different too in their own way.
Exactly. And it's not just like I think they tried to kind of build off and away from cliches of maybe like nerd culture, so it wasn't like predictability at every single move. They were into a lot of the stuff that 80s kids were into, but a lot of it is cool callbacks. Obviously, neither of us were raised in the 80s, but homage to those 80s films, 80s soundtracks, and of course, just the 80s in general. And something that I thought was really good, other than the kids, of course, was just the supporting cast that lined this whole thing. Like Winona Ryder was a huge name on this, and she was the mother.
The mom of...
the missing child.
Of Will, right? Yeah.
What did you think about her throughout the show?
Well, sort of towards the beginning, whenever she was trying to figure out what was going on, it seemed like she was going a bit insane, and like everyone around her kind of thought that as well, but we find out that,
things aren't exactly as they seem, and maybe don't always doubt. And what I thought was really cool, instead of her just getting played off the entire time, people actually start to open up and realize, instead of just being totally naive.
Yeah, like people all, like even the officer, what was his name?
Hops. Yeah, Hopper. Hopper was the name of the officer.
It took him a little while, but once he figured out like what was going on, he like was a big character in like figuring this all out and like investigating with the family or whatever. Right.
And I feel like Hopper was one of the most important characters.
Yeah, I really liked his character because he had some things go on with his daughter in the past.
Right. There was a lot of tragedy surrounding his past.
He could relate to what was going on with his family and their son, so...
And I like that they kind of fleshed out the characters a little bit. Not so much that it feels like it's just overkill, like they really want us to get to know these characters and feel bad for them. But it was still adding
just enough
to make you care about what's going on with this person. And there's something that we'll discuss later whenever it comes to Hopper. But as of now, we're going to move on to some of the other characters in this show. There's a couple of brothers and sisters, obviously, that play a big part in this. Kind of going into the search and rescue for this missing child. Will, a lot of stuff going on there with things that may have been faked. Obviously, the government being involved, having a huge hand here. Doesn't it get crazier and crazier?
It is. A lot of things start to unravel as the show goes on. And even like I said, I was telling you before, like even at the very end of the show, like there's still so much that like we don't know.
And that's what I love. There's so many horror movies and horror TV shows that feel like we're idiots. But we're not idiots. And the thing is, you don't have to spell everything out. Don't you love it when things are a little bit more open? Exactly. Yeah. Whenever things are a little bit more open-ended, you know, you have to think about things.
It makes it really enjoyable, especially for the upcoming season, which I'm sure is going to happen.
It's got to. Netflix, if you don't renew this, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Will's older brother, I don't know how old they are, probably like 17.
Yeah, probably
16.
17, 18, somewhere in that range.
There. He obviously is really like beat up over it because he wasn't home at the time that Will came home looking for him or whatever.
And Will disappeared in the middle of the night riding his bicycle home. Yeah. So obviously he's blaming himself probably a little bit.
He was very guilty. He didn't know like what to think of it. He went out shooting photography because that's what he likes to do.
Right.
And he finds out some other things.
Yeah, they kind of tie into the plot points.
Literally clues.
Exactly. Things that he didn't even know that he was getting.
Exactly.
Which was another really cool thing that I feel like at the time you just feel like he's being dismissed as this kind of creep, the guy with the camera, you know, that type. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that maybe Jonathan has a little bit more to offer to this plot. Jonathan actually teamed up with Nancy, who was the older sister of Mike. And they weren't exactly close whenever this all started.
There was a lot of drama kind of going on. They were making fun of him, like her and the friends, like the popular kids or whatever.
Right.
They're all kind of against Jonathan. Later on, they end up actually being a team and figuring a lot of shit out and doing some of their own investigating.
And it turns out that some of the people who you might think are just like the douchiest people in the show, I like the fact that they were able to transform that. At one point, I was actually cheering for one of these people to die. And then you see the evolution of this person, the fact that maybe they actually did change.
Kind of open up their eyes.
Exactly. Whenever a show can do that, yeah, I say kudos. The U.S. government was a huge part of the plot here, and we see that kind of suspiciously going on behind the scenes with some of these like gray-haired figures, some people kind of doing some sketchy things.
Very sketchy. They don't tell you exactly that these people are involved, but you figure that out as the show goes on.
And you kind of assume, too, whenever you see certain things. And we see a very mysterious character that we have not even mentioned up to this point of the review. Mm-hmm. 11 is actually her name. Yeah. It's a little girl with a shaved head who you're actually probably seeing on the cover. Mm-hmm, if you see the little preview in the thumbnail, that's 11. And 11 is a very gifted girl. She's actually kind of a scientific experiment who was taken away from her mother at birth, is what we have figured out. That's not really a giveaway there. I actually think that was in the trailer for the show. It's something that she has these extra abilities, kind of like a psychokinetic type thing. She can do things with her mind. And it comes at a little bit of a cost to her in terms of like her health.
It's like physically and mentally draining,
it
seems.
And there's certain ways that she can do things. She can do things here, but she can also tap into this place where these people are being taken. We know of these monsters. We know of this other world, which is referred to as, what is it called?
The Upside Down.
The Upside Down. And that's kind of explained a little bit more by their AV club instructor that kind of gives the kids clues on exactly what's going on.
For them.
Exactly. And I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, obviously that's kind of cliche that the geeks are all in the AV club or whatever, but I mean, it was the 1980s.
It was the 80s. So.
And I mean, it seems to fit pretty well with what they were doing, especially whenever he starts answering some very important questions for them down the road. And I really like the way they explored that. Added a little bit of humor along with it as well. But I feel like what was going on with 11 was probably obviously the thing that is on everyone's mind, especially once we got closer to the end of this first season. We see 11 dealing with the pressures of actually becoming human. She escaped from this lab. She's only known Papa in the lab her entire life. And now we see her interacting with other children her age and trying to figure out, like, not just words and what things mean, but also how to feel and how to love, etc.
There's a little bit of a chemistry going on
between one of the main characters and 11, and it's kind of cool to see that spark flying there, because it's not something that I maybe would have expected, especially once she first came onto the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm like super glad that you suggested this, because I had no idea like what it was. Like, you're the one who heard about it, and I know other people who've been watching it and they all loved it, so we finally gave it a chance, and I'm so glad we did, because it was honestly like really, really good, like better than a lot of stuff on Netflix.
This is something that obviously someone like the Duffer Brothers were given control, and they were put in like this project, and they actually did something. They were given a budget. They made the things look so spectacular. I mean, I thought the world that they went to was fantastic. Everything about it just looked really visually appealing, and nothing, even the CGI and the action sequences. It was exactly, especially for a Netflix original show. It looked great.
The effort's definitely there, and you could see that. I just thought it was really entertaining. It leaves you hooked. Like, you don't want to stop watching it. It's hard to stop. Like, we almost finished it like the other night.
We almost finished it. I think it was like 2 or 3 nights, and it's one of those things that I feel like it's a very addictive, fast-paced, mystery-filled, keeps you kind of trying to like solve those puzzles as you go, and still leaves you thinking afterwards. And that's pretty much anything that you could want from a show like that, in kind of the thriller, suspense, horror, sci-fi, drama category.
And some of you might like be turned off by like, oh, sci-fi or like nerd stuff. It's really not like that. Like, I'm not into like a lot of sci-fi stuff, but this is like really good. Like, just just watch it. Like, you'll like it from the first episode. Like, there's just so much going on. It's very different than anything I've ever really watched. So, and I also like the nostalgia factor of like the 80s. It's like super cool.
I do too.
Even though I wasn't from there, but you know what I mean.
I'm not either, and it's a huge thing. And obviously, I love a lot of 80s styled music. But I can definitely see myself coming back to this season again. I'll probably rewatch it before season 2 drops. And I'm just excited to see what's going to happen for season 2. So before we get to the spoilers, I'm going to go ahead and throw out a rating for season 1. I honestly don't have any issues with it. I could easily give this a 5 out of 5. I don't know how you're feeling, but
I'd probably agree, yeah.
I mean, there's not really anything. I mean, the acting, the way that this was directed, shot, everything, all the characters interacting with each other, the storyline and the way it progresses, and how we see these characters maybe develop in a way that you wouldn't expect. I think it makes it a very, very worthwhile watch on Netflix, especially if you're bored on a weekend or something. Marathon through that shit. It won't take you long at all. You could do it in a day.
Each episode's like an hour, not even.
Exactly. So take an afternoon, sit down, give the show a watch, and let us know what you thought in the comments. Now, if you're sticking around, this is spoiler talk. There's a couple of quick plot points that we want to discuss that we saw especially loose-ended towards the end of this show regarding what happens to 11, Hopper, and that sort of thing. So if you're not wanting to know this yet, if you haven't finished the show, if you haven't watched it, definitely click away now.
So for those of you who have finished the show, we know that towards the very end, Hopper comes out of the hospital and he actually gets into the car with
a couple of the government
guys. Yeah. And we were both like, did a double take, like, wait, what? Why did he get in the car with them?
Especially since he was so keen on saving 11 and
he was against them. Like, because remember, they set up something in his house as if he had fallen asleep and like drank and
exactly. They set him up, and that's the whole thing. This whole show is about making these people trying to think that they're crazy, and they got bugged. You know, he found that they had a little microphone tap listening in on him.
Like everyone involved.
But the thing is, why would all of that be going down? Why would he be getting in the car with them at the end? Did they convince him of something?
Was he with them all along? Like, what?
But he was the one in the Upside Down doing the exploring.
Yeah, he went through.
He was with Joyce, the mother, going to find Will. And obviously that was another huge thing. Obviously Will gets rescued. That's another huge thing that we have to discuss here. Yeah, he was resuscitated, but we transform a month later and we see Christmas time, and Will, Jonathan, and Joyce sitting at the dinner table together. Will has to excuse himself to the bathroom because he's not feeling well, and we see a little tentacle that was left from whenever it was pulled out of his mouth. Whenever he was found in the Upside Down, there was this tentacle. It looked like they were kind of sucking the life out of him, essentially, and that looked like what happened to a lot of people down there. And obviously that being coughed up, and he got a brief flashback of the Upside Down.
Unsettling.
What does that mean?
It's like, what?
What
it's
is...
not over, clearly.
It's clearly not over.
And I think that's like a big sign that there will be another season, because why else would they end on that?
Well, that's the thing. I think that they pretty much got a guarantee. They have to have a guarantee from Netflix already or something, because they wouldn't leave a cliffhanger like that, especially whenever it's catching on like this. I mean, I feel like this
is... ratings.
Exactly.
That's from Rotten Tomatoes.
Exactly. The reviews are great. The fans seem to be loving it. Just people on Netflix. I mean, it's people who aren't even, like you said, into sci-fi and that sort of thing, and they're really just blown away by what's going on in this season. So I feel like there's definitely some questions. I think 11 is another huge one that was left on our minds.
Also, I don't even know if it was on Christmas, probably like Christmas Eve or something, but Hopper goes like to the police party or whatever.
Right.
He gathers all this food and we're like, oh, he's just eating food. He takes it to this place in the woods and puts it in something. In
a little box that it looked like he had created. And I'm wondering if that's not the same site as wherever the Will originally was left at his bike. Remember, he left his bike out there in the woods. They discovered that later. Now he's bringing Eggo waffles, which was a huge favorite of 11. She was always talking about that.
So that's a huge, hint there.
Exactly.
She is not gone. Because when she did defeat the monster or whatever, she just kind of, everything just kind of disappeared. So we don't know actually what happened there.
Right.
Like, she knew that she had to, she knew she was going to be gone, but...
Yeah, and that just was that was kind of a huge blow, because you feel like that's going to tie into the chemistry of, the character Will and 11 in season 2. Obviously, he's very, very sad that 11 is no longer with him.
Or Mike, you mean? Yeah. I know, I keep mixing them. Okay, just...
Mike. Okay.
Just say...
Obviously. What was the last thing you said whenever you finished? Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Obviously, this is probably going to be a huge plot point in season 2, but people are going to be wondering what happened between Mike and 11, because obviously Mike is very sad right now because he thinks 11 is just gone. Something has happened to her. We don't know where she is.
Yeah, there was that scene at the very end when all his friends were, fighting or whatever, and, he looks over at where she was staying in his house, and he just, gets really sad.
I honestly thought that something was going to buzz through on that little walkie-talkie that they had, because that was a huge thing. The boys would communicate via walkie-talkie, and they had communicated to, obviously, Will and the Upside Down through that walkie-talkie and that Clash song and everything. Should I stay or should I go? That was a huge part of it. So I feel like maybe those walkies are going to come in again, season 2. Maybe something's going to happen and 11's going to appear again, because Papa's no longer with us. Thanks to the amazing powers of 11, which just kind of blows my mind every time, just exactly what happens there and how just well done those sequences were, because I feel like she's a fantastic actor, the girl that played 11.
For the age that she is,
There's a lot of unanswered questions, guys. I'm not exactly sure what's coming up, but I definitely know that I'll be watching.
Definitely.
You will be.
There's no doubt. I'm very anxious already.
So let us know what you think, maybe what's coming up for season 2 in the comments section down below, and don't forget to leave a like on this video. Maybe subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Hannah's as well. It's going to be linked in the description down below. I know I don't usually talk about TV, but I definitely do enjoy TV shows even more so than movies, just because I like getting invested with characters and just kind of plot points and kind of dissecting things. And I mean, obviously I go see movies as well, but I hope you guys enjoyed seeing me talk about a TV show today. If you'd like to see me maybe do that again, I was thinking about reviewing the newest season of The Walking Dead before the new one drops. Let me know in the comment section down below. Other than that, I will see you guys very soon right here on Beyond ARTV.